You wake before the sun rises, but something feels wrong. The air is too still, too heavy, as if the world itself is holding its breath. You step outside into a narrow medieval street, expecting the usual rhythm of life, the distant chatter of merchants, the creaking of wooden carts, the smell of fresh bread drifting from a nearby oven. Instead, there is silence. A silence so deep it presses against your ears, unnatural and suffocating. Then you see them. Figures moving slowly through the pale, morning mist, carrying bodies wrapped in rough cloth. There are no prayers, no processions, no signs of mourning, only urgency, only distance. Each step they take feels mechanical, as if they have done this too many times already. You instinctively lower your gaze, just as everyone else does. No one wants to meet another person's eyes. Because eye contact now means something else. It means suspicion, it means fear, it means death might already be walking beside you. This is Europe, 1348. And something has arrived. At first it came quietly. Travelers coughing behind closed hands, ships docking with crews already weakened, whispers spreading through markets about a strange sickness moving across distant lands. But whispers don't stay whispers for long. Within weeks they turn into panic. The disease does not wait. It spreads faster than messages can travel, faster than anyone can understand what is happening. You begin to notice the changes everywhere. Shops that once opened with the "sunrise" remain shut. Doors are locked, windows covered, entire homes sealed from the inside. Some streets are abandoned completely. Others feel watched, as if every shadow hides something unseen. Families vanish overnight, leaving behind untouched belongings, half-finished meals, open doors. No one stays long enough to ask why. No one wants to know anymore. You hear stories, terrible ones. A man who felt strong in the morning, dead before nightfall. A woman who complained of a headache, then collapsed within hours. A child who coughed once and never spoke again. The disease shows no mercy, no pattern, no warning. It chooses without logic. And because no one understands it, it becomes something far worse than an illness. It becomes a presence, invisible, unstoppable. As you walk further, the smell reaches you. It is thick, sour, almost sweet in a way that makes your stomach turn. It clings to the air, to the walls, to your clothes. People believe this smell is the disease itself, that the air has turned against humanity, that death is no longer something you touch, but something you breathe. Every inhale feels dangerous now, every breath a silent gamble. Inside homes, the suffering begins. It starts with fever, sudden and burning, draining the strength from your body within hours. Muscles ache, joints weaken, exhaustion takes over. Then come the swellings, dark, painful lumps beneath the skin, growing in the neck, under the arms, near the legs. They pulse with pressure, impossible to ignore, impossible to hide. A sign that something inside you is changing, something you cannot stop. Soon, the skin darkens. Bruises spread beneath the surface like ink, turning flesh into something unfamiliar. Some say it looks as if the body is rotting while still alive. And then, just as quickly as it begins, everything ends. Days, sometimes less. That is all it takes for a life to disappear. You begin to understand why people are running. Entire cities start to empty. Those who can leave do. They abandon homes, possessions, even family members. Survival becomes the only instinct left. Fear replaces love. A mother avoids her child. A husband refuses to touch his wife. A father leaves before anyone notices the first signs. Not because they do not care, but because caring has become dangerous. Churches, once filled with hope, now overflow with desperation. Priests move from one dying person to another, offering prayers without rest. Their voices grow weaker, their eyes more hollow. Some begin to question whether their words mean anything at all. Others continue, not because they believe, but because it is all they have left. Many fall ill themselves, collapsing beside those they tried to save. And outside, the world continues to break. Trade stops, roads fall silent, markets disappear. Without workers, without farmers, without anyone left to sustain the fragile order of society, everything begins to collapse. You walk through streets that should be full of life, but instead you hear only the echo of your own footsteps against cold stone. Then come the graves. At first, they are small, individual, marked with care. But as the numbers rise, care becomes impossible. There is no time, no space, no strength left. The dead are carried in groups, buried together in deep pits. No names, no rituals, no goodbyes. Just bodies, one after another, disappearing into the earth. And you realize something terrifying. No one is in control anymore. There is no cure. No explanation, no understanding, only fear. And in that fear, people begin to search for anything at all, that might offer protection. Not because it works, but because doing nothing feels worse than believing in something uncertain. This is where the doctors begin to emerge. You hear about them before you see them. Men who walk into places everyone else avoids, men who approach the sick when others run away. They claim to confront the disease, to understand it, to fight it. But even they are surrounded by uncertainty. They speak of poisoned air, of invisible vapors spreading death through every breath. They call it miasma. If the air itself is the enemy, then the air must be blocked, filtered, controlled, defended against. So they begin to prepare, not with true knowledge, not with science as you would understand it today, but with belief, with theories built from fear, observation, and desperation. Because when the world no longer makes sense, belief becomes the only structure left standing. And then, one day, as the fog thickens and the silence grows heavier than ever, you see something approaching in the distance. A figure, tall, dark, unfamiliar. Its shape is strange, unnatural against the empty street. Not quite human, not quite anything you recognize. And as it steps closer, slowly emerging from the mist, you realize this is not just a man. This is something else entirely. If you want to understand what you just witnessed, stay with me until the end. You keep your distance at first, watching the figure emerge through the thinning mist. Every instinct tells you to step back, to turn away, to disappear into whatever shelter you can still find. But something holds you there. Curiosity, perhaps, or the quiet realization that this figure, as terrifying as it appears, might be the only thing standing between you and what is spreading through the streets. As it comes closer, the details become clearer. The shape is unmistakable. A long, dark coat that reaches the ground, heavy and stiff, moving unnaturally with each step. Gloves cover the hands completely. Boots seal the feet. Not a single part of the skin is visible. And then, the face. A mask. But not like anything you have ever seen. It extends outward into a long, curved beak, almost like that of a bird. The surface is smooth, made of hardened leather, shaped with intention. Two round glass openings sit where the eyes should be, reflecting the pale light of the morning. Behind them, you cannot see the person. Only darkness, only distance. This is a plague doctor. You have heard about them, everyone has. But seeing one in person is something entirely different. It does not feel like looking at a healer. It feels like looking at something that belongs to the disease itself. Something that walks with it, not against it. And yet, these are the men sent to help. Most of them are not the physicians you would expect. Many were not trained in the way true scholars of medicine once were. They are hired in times of crisis, brought in because there is no one else left. Cities desperate for answers turn to whoever is willing to step forward, and those who do are given a task no one fully understands, to confront something no one can explain. They become, in a way, the last hope, not because they are certain, but because they are present. You watch as the figure moves closer to a doorway where a family stands frozen. No one speaks, no one moves. The doctor does not rush. Each step is slow, deliberate, controlled. There is a sense of ritual in the movement, as if every action has been practiced to create distance between the man inside the suit and the world around him. And then you notice the beak again. It is not just a design, it serves a purpose. Inside that hollow extension, hidden from view, are packed layers of dried herbs, crushed flowers, and strong spices. Lavender, mint, camphor, perhaps even vinegar-soaked cloth, all of it chosen not for comfort, but for protection, or at least what is believed to be protection, because the belief is simple: the air itself is poisoned. If death travels through the air, then the air must be filtered, cleaned, transformed before it reaches the lungs. The beak, long and narrow, forces every breath to pass through those substances. It is, in their understanding, a barrier between life and death. You realize something unsettling. The mask is not just clothing, it is a theory made visible. The glass lenses covering. The eyes serve their own purpose. They protect against the same invisible threat. If the air is dangerous, then so is everything carried within it. The eyes must be shielded. The face must be hidden. Identity itself becomes irrelevant inside the costume. And then there is the rest of the outfit. The coat, long and dark, is made from thick leather, often coated with wax to prevent anything from penetrating its surface. It is heavy, uncomfortable, restrictive, but it covers the entire body, leaving no exposed skin. The gloves extend over the hands, sealing them completely. The boots rise high, protecting the legs. Every part of the body is enclosed, isolated from the world outside. Even the cane has a purpose. You watch as the doctor lifts it slightly, using it to gesture without touching. To move objects, to examine from a distance, it becomes an extension of the body, a tool that allows interaction without contact, because contact in this world is no longer safe. From a distance, the figure no longer looks human at all. It looks like something designed to survive in a place where humans cannot, and that is exactly what it is meant to be. But to the people around you, it means something else entirely. Fear spreads through the crowd without a word being spoken. Children hide behind their parents, doors close quietly, windows are shut, because seeing this figure does not bring comfort, it brings certainty. If the doctor has arrived, death is already near. You feel it too, that instinctive reaction, that tightening in your chest, because the presence of the mask does not signal safety. It signals that something has already gone wrong, that the disease has reached this place, that no one here is untouched anymore. And yet, despite everything, you cannot look away, because beneath the fear there is something else, a question, a doubt. All of this, the mask, the coat, the herbs, the glass, the cane, it is all built on belief, on an understanding of the world. That feels real to those living in it. But as you watch the figure disappear into the doorway, swallowed by the darkness inside, one thought begins to form. What if none of this is enough? What if the thing they are trying to stop cannot be stopped this way? And what if this strange bird-like figure is not a solution, but a symbol of how little they truly understand? But did it actually work? Or was it just a desperate illusion? If you want to uncover the truth behind what they believed, and what was really happening, stay with me until the end. You stand there watching the strange figure disappear into the darkness of the doorway, and a question begins to take shape in your mind. Everything you have seen, the mask, the beak, the layers of protection, feels deliberate, almost calculated. But calculated based on what? What logic could have led to something so unusual, so unsettling, becoming the answer to a crisis no one truly understands? To understand it, you have to step inside. They're thinking, in this world the enemy is not visible. It does not crawl across the skin or drip from wounds. It floats, it lingers, it spreads through the air itself. This is what they believe. That disease is carried by foul smells, by invisible vapors rising from decay, from rot, from death itself. They call it miasma, bad air, poisoned air, air that corrupts everything it touches. And once you believe that, everything changes. Every smell becomes a warning, every foul odor becomes a signal of danger. The streets filled with death become toxic environments. The very act of breathing becomes a risk. You are no longer just avoiding people, you are avoiding the air around them. You begin to understand why the mask exists. Not as a disguise, but as a defense against something that cannot be seen. The beak is the key. Inside that long, hollow structure is a mixture carefully chosen, not randomly, but with intention. Dried lavender, mint leaves, camphor, rose petals, sometimes even cloves or vinegar-soaked sponges. Strong scents, sharp, penetrating aromas that fill the interior of the mask completely. When the doctor breathes, the air is forced through this mixture before reaching the lungs. To them, this is filtration. If the air is poisoned, then it must be purified before entering the body. The herbs are not decoration. They are believed to neutralize the danger, to cleanse what cannot be seen. Each breath becomes controlled, processed, filtered through nature itself. It is not science as you know it, but it is logic, built from observation and fear, and in a way it almost makes sense. But the mask is only part of the protection. You begin to notice the rest of the design more clearly. The long coat, heavy and sealed, prevents anything from touching the skin. The gloves isolate the hands completely. The boots protect the lower body. There is no exposed surface, no open pathway for whatever this invisible threat might be. Even the eyes are shielded behind glass, removing yet another possible entry point. Without realizing it, they have created a barrier, not against what they think they are fighting, but against something else entirely. Because while they believe the danger is in the air, the real threat moves differently. It hides in places no one is looking, in the shadows, in the cracks, in the smallest living creatures that move unnoticed through the streets. Fleas, tiny, almost invisible, feeding on rats that thrive in the same environments now, filled with death and decay. As the disease spreads among animals, it jumps to humans through these bites, not through the air, not through the smell, but through contact so small it goes completely unnoticed. And suddenly, something becomes clear. The mask was not designed to stop this, but parts of it martyrs did. The heavy clothing, the sealed layers, the lack of exposed skin, they reduced the chances of being bitten. The gloves limited direct contact. The cane kept distance between the doctor and the infected. Even the beak, while not filtering disease as intended, created space between the face and the outside world, reducing exposure to droplets and proximity. They were wrong about the cause, but not entirely wrong about the protection. You realize this strange paradox. They built their defenses on a flawed understanding, yet some of those defenses still worked, not because of what they believed, but because of what they accidentally prevented. It is not true knowledge guiding them. It is coincidence, trial, survival shaped by fear. And still the disease continues, because the real cause remains hidden. A bacterium, invisible to the human eye, unknown to their world, moving silently through blood and bodies. It has a name you would recognize now, Yersinia pestis. But to them it does not exist. It has no form, no explanation, no place in their understanding of reality. So they fight the air. While the real enemy moves beneath their feet, inside walls, across floors, carried by creatures they barely notice. And that is what makes this moment so haunting. They are trying, they are adapting, they are creating something that feels like protection, but they are aiming in the wrong direction. Every effort, every design, every belief is built on a foundation that cannot fully stop what is happening. They thought they were fighting the air, but the real enemy was already crawling beneath their feet. If you want to see how this misunderstanding shaped history, and how this mask became something far greater than its purpose, stay with me until the end. You watch the figure disappear into the darkness, and for a moment, the street returns to silence. But something has changed. Not in the air, not in the buildings, not in the distant sound of footsteps fading away, but in what that image leaves behind inside you. Because what you just saw is not only a response to a crisis, it is something that will outlive the crisis itself. Long after the bodies are buried and the streets begin to fill again, that shape remains. the long coat, the glass eyes, the curved beak. It becomes more than a tool. It becomes a symbol, a visual memory of a time when fear ruled everything, when death was not an event, but a constant presence, moving from door to door without warning. And that image does not fade. It travels through generations, carried in drawings, in stories, in whispered accounts of what it felt like to live in a world where no one was safe. The beaked mask becomes a representation of something deeper than disease. It becomes the face of uncertainty itself, the shape of fear when it takes form. You begin to see it appear in places far removed from its origin, in paintings, exaggerated and haunting, in theatre where actors wear it not to heal but to evoke dread, in festivals where it transforms into something almost surreal, decorated, stylized, turned into art, especially in Venice, where the mask evolves into something both beautiful and disturbing, blending elegance with the memory of death. But beneath every variation, the meaning remains. It reminds you of a moment when humanity stood in the dark, searching for answers that did not yet exist. And yet, even in that darkness, something began. Because while the doctors misunderstood the cause, their actions were not meaningless. Covering the body, avoiding direct contact, creating distance between themselves and the sick, these were not random choices. They were early steps toward something greater, toward the idea that protection matters, that unseen threats require barriers, not just courage. You begin to recognize the pattern. What started as fear-driven design becomes the foundation for future understanding, protective clothing, isolation, awareness of transmission, concepts that will, centuries later, become central to medicine, not because they were fully understood in that moment, but because they were experienced, learned the hard way. The mask, then, is not just a mistake. It is a beginning. But there is also another side to it, one that cannot be ignored, because for all its symbolism, for all its legacy, it also represents something fragile, a reminder of how limited human understanding can be when faced with the unknown. The doctors believed they were fighting the air. They trusted their methods. They stepped into danger with conviction. And yet, the true cause remained hidden. It is easy, from where you stand now, to see the gaps, to recognize the missing pieces, to understand what they could not. But in that moment, they were doing what all humans do when confronted with something overwhelming. They tried, they observed, they adapted. They created meaning where none existed. And even when their understanding was incomplete, their intention was not. They walked into places others fled from. They stood near the sick when others turned away. They chose to face what terrified everyone else. And that matters, because the story of the mask is not just about failure. It is about resilience, about the human need to act even when certainty is impossible, about the instinct to build something, anything, that might stand between life and death. You begin to see it differently now, not just as an object, not just as a symbol of fear, but as a reflection of a moment when humanity stood at the edge of its own understanding and refused to do nothing. And that is why it remains, because it captures something timeless, the way fear shapes action, the way uncertainty drives creation, the way survival pushes people to imagine solutions before they truly understand the problem. You look back at that empty street, now quiet once again, and the image of the figure lingers in your mind, not as something monstrous, but as something deeply human, a response to the unknown, a mask built not from knowledge, but from hope. They wore the mask to survive death, without ever knowing what death truly was. If this story changed the way you see history, fear, and human resilience, stay with me, subscribe, and be part of the next journey into the past.